Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are dialing in from. Welcome to you all for our last of the amazing faculty lecture series. We thank you all for coming today and being with us again today. It is so wonderful to see all of you. This has been an incredible faculty lecture series, and we are so incredibly proud of our faculty members. So thank you all for being here today. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. If you can hear me and you can hear me well, please type in the chat that you can hear, but I do see that everybody's typing in the chat already. So welcome to you all from all over the world. Please try to hold your questions until the end, but feel free to type in the chat any questions that you might have throughout the lecture. Our professor is going to answer all the questions at the end. If we do not get to your question at the end of this faculty lecture, Dr. Katia Meggiorin will be recording answers to all your questions, and we will be providing you with those answers after the lecture. So thank you all. And Dr. Katia Meggiorin, it is such a pleasure to have you here. Dr. Meggiorin is an assistant professor in our information systems program. She has received her PhD from New York University, as well as her master's in strategy. And she also has another master's in management science, as well as an MA in communication sciences from the University of Amsterdam. So 3 master's degrees, as well as a PhD and a bachelor's degree in public relations and advertising. So Dr. Katia Meggiorin, I am so excited to hear what you have to tell us today. And we are saving the best for last. So without any further ado, please go ahead and take over for your lecture today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this kind introduction. I'm very glad of having this opportunity to discuss with you all business models in the era of AI and of closing together this lecture series that has been a very fascinating lecture series for myself as well to learn from my colleagues. Allow me to share my screen and start. Okay, I believe you're able to see my slides. So as I mentioned, as you all know, today I would like to discuss with you how business models are changing in the era of AI. And I would like to use an example throughout this presentation that will help us discussing the different changes in business models that we observed. And the example is Adobe. Adobe, you're most likely familiar with it, is a major and important product in the digital design industry. It is the go-to tool for professional designers, and it is a widespread and widely used product, great revenues, good margins, the number of users keep growing. Yet, as you can see from the slide, the stock market isn't particularly excited or optimistic about the future of this product. And the main reason is that they fear that AI is going to change the ability of Adobe to create and deliver value in the future. So the reasons for this drop in the stock price that you see here represented is mainly due to the fact that many traders do not believe Adobe will be able to sustain the competition that is growing with the growing use of AI in this industry. And indeed, there are many competitors of Adobe in this AI image generation market. Adobe itself is a competitor. Canva is a competitor that has been growing for the last decade. So it's a digital native company, yet not an AI native company. Yet here you see many other examples of companies that are AI native. So they are using AI that were created during this AI revolution, and they are using heavily AI in order to compete with established competitors such as Adobe. So I would like for the presentation of today to talk with you or compare together with you three companies in this industry. One is Adobe, is the well-established organization in this industry, established in 1992, is well known for its famous products such as Photoshop and Acrobat Reader, and it is the go-to tool in the industry nowadays. The other company I would like to compare it to is Canva. Canva was founded in 2013. It is a growing company, and it serves a different part of the market. It's focused on non-professionals in the market, and it's really trying to compete in the easy-to-use aspect of the digital design. It creates a drag-and-drop design tools for any individual to use. And finally, we have Runway, that is the AI native company in this industry. It was founded recently in 2018 here in New York City, and it's heavily using AI tools, particularly AI models, in order to create value in this industry. We're gonna compare the three of them throughout this presentation and see how they essentially use those examples to understand what are the differences in the different approaches the companies can take in this era of AI, and what does it entails for their ability to create value and remain successful in the AI era. And in order to do that, we're going to use the tool of the business model, Canva. But the business model is in itself the rationale of how organizations create, deliver value to consumers, and capture value from consumers. And this is exactly what has been challenged by the stock market for Adobe. The stock market doesn't believe that Adobe will be able to continue creating value, delivering value, and capturing value in the future. So we are going to look at the business model of Adobe and how it changes in the AI era. We're also going to look at how the business model of Canvas and Runway is different, especially as it pertains the use of AI. And we're going to see the difference across these three companies in the ways they use AI. And particularly, we are going to use the business model canvas and the 9 building blocks in order to guide our analysis. You might be familiar with this tool already. It's essentially an abstract description of how a company creates and delivers value, and it's an analysis of the customers, the customer relationship, the channels. Here you can see all the 9 blocks. These 9 blocks for a successful organizations are supposed to work together in order to create value and to deliver value for the users. I'm going to walk through each of these 9 blocks with you. And for each of the 9 blocks, after giving a very quick description of what it means and what it describes, we are going to see how that block applies to the 3 different companies differently. So whenever we use the business model canvas, we always want to start from defining who are the customers. What's the customer segment that the company is targeting? And the idea here is that if you, for example, have an organization, you are building a startup and you want to enter an existing industry, then you need to identify the subset of users you are going to focus on in order to start building your organization. And you identify this customer segment by identifying which kind of needs they have, and you can satisfy how you're going to reach these consumers, which kind of relationship you're going to establish with them, and ultimately how you're able to sustain costs and capture some value, so create some profits out of this interaction with the customers. And we see immediately differences across the 3 companies in terms of the customers that they focus on. Adobe is, as I mentioned, the well-established actor in the industry, is the go-to tool for professionals. It is so predominant that Adobe is often taught at the university as the tool to learn if you want to become a digital designer. So it's very dominant in the professional world. Canva, as I mentioned, is targeting more the non-professionals, non-designers. The people who have not been trained in more complex tools. And the idea is to allow them to realize some maybe simpler designs, but still achieving a good result. It's also appealing, therefore, to small businesses that might not have the budget to dedicate to an extensive department, marketing department, or a department of skilled designer and professionals, yet it wants to create some high-level outcomes in terms of digital design. And finally, we have Runway. Runway is targeting professional itself, but in a very niche part of the market. So Adobe covers everything from images to videos to templates for documents. Adobe is across the digital world in every aspect that you may think of. Runway is entering this industry by focusing on video making. So the target customers are the filmmakers, are the ad agencies, and agile production studios. So it's targeting professionals, it's trying to simplify their workflows, but is starting from those organizations who do not have the resources to to use the classical tools such as Adobe. So it's starting from small organizations who might be resource constrained, but it's providing them high-level tools targeted to professionals. And the goal of Runway will be to extend toward professionals and larger organizations eventually. So now that we have identified the different customers for these three organizations, we want to immediately think about what exactly is the organization trying to provide to those customers. What's their value proposition? So here, the value proposition is trying to identify for each customer segments, what are the problems that these customers are facing? What are the needs or the new opportunities that the organization is able to provide them with their tools and actions? Generally speaking, usually we think about value propositions in terms of a quantitative differentiation. For example, my company might be able to provide the exact same product as a competitor, but at a much lower price. So it's a quantitative differentiator compared to competitors. Or it might be a qualitative difference. So my organization is able, again, to provide the same functionalities of another product, yet at a much higher quality. An example of a qualitative or a company that was very good at differentiating itself from a qualitative point of view will be Apple, where it's able to provide high-level computers, yet it's part of its competitive advantage is on the sleek design and the ease of use of its interfaces. So now that we know practically what value propositions are, let's look at how the three organizations who have different or who are targeting different customer segments are trying to provide to them different values. So we see that for Adobe, who is targeting professionals, then the value that can provide professional is ultimate control. The professionals have full control on the production process, and they are able to create exactly what they want and with the precision that is required for their work. And most importantly, in the area of AI, they have guaranteed commercial safety, which means whatever AI tool they are using, whatever Adobe AI tool they are using, Adobe is guaranteeing them that there are no copyright infringements. So the work that they create based on Adobe tool is copyright safe, let's say. Very important, clearly, for professionals whose work depends on that. For Canvas, who is targeting the non-professionals and the smaller organization, then the value proposition for them is the speed, the ability to quickly and easily create a good output from a design advertisement perspective without needing the professional and technical skills that are required for other tools such as Adobe. For Runway, who is targeting professionals, yes, in the very niche part of the market, the filmmaking, we see that the value proposition for Runway is the acceleration of a very complex production process. So making movies and adjusting each frame of the movie is a very complex and often time-consuming process. Runway is using AI in order to simplify that process and make it faster for professionals. The next block discusses the channels, which is how the company engages with consumers. And we often think about this channel as the marketing channel, or where a consumer can purchase my product and how I do deliver the product. Actually, channels summarize any interaction that the organization has with the consumer. So the very first interaction is making sure that the consumers that I'm targeting are aware of the existence of my organization. Once I achieve that, then I need to make sure to provide enough information that my target consumers can compare my value proposition with the value proposition of other competitors. Then I need to make sure that there is a place where they can purchase my products if they are interested to do so, a way for me to deliver the product, and depending on the organizations, have after sales customer assistance for my consumers. Here we can see other important differences across the three organizations. Adobe is very intertwined in the professional world already. So professionals learn about Adobe at the university, so while studying already, and they learn about even more products by Adobe for the Create Cloud suite. So Adobe has many different products. You might join the platform for one product, and then you learn about the portfolio of products and services that Adobe is able to provide. For Canvas, the ways they approached consumers is through viral user acquisition and product-led growth, such as freemiums that invite users to experiment with their product, and hopefully they will decide to keep using Canvas and pay for even more sophisticated tools. Runway, who serves high professionals, they need to find a way to reach those professionals. So they create industry-specific outreach. And most importantly, most interestingly, because Runway is selling the technology itself, is trying to persuade professionals that AI can provide high quality scenes, high quality movies, then a Runway also needs to convince or show to the professionals the quality that these AI tools can produce. Therefore, it's also organizing alternative events such as the AI Film Festival. That is a way for Runway not only to promote its own brand, but also to show what AI can do and convince professionals, even inside a larger organization, that AI is and particularly the AI they produce, is a very helpful tool for professionals in this industry. Next block, we have the customer relationships. Once we have established a communication channel with the consumers, with our target audience, how are we gonna maintain this relationship over time? Are we gonna have a personal assistance kind of action or a self-service type of product? And here, again, very different approaches. Adobe is very much intertwined with the professional world. And one way it does that is that it provides very high quality tools. They might be complex. This is the reason why Canva actually entered that market. However, AI is offering a post-sale high-level assistance. So customer assistance after the sale of the product is so high, helps the professionals to learn and to know how to use the tools at a very high level so that the professionals remain satisfied with the tools and they keep buying it. For Canvas, who targets non-professional mostly, then main the type of relationship that is trying to develop with this mass market is to create a frictionless self-service relationship. The users need to come to the website and find it so easy to use, so great user interface, great user experience, that they don't need assistance. They can just figure out as they go from the website. And finally, we have Runway. Runway, again, the AI native organization. In here, it's building the technology, and it's building the technology together with the customers. So it's kind of a collaboration relationship. Runway knows what the filmmakers want, and so it's started building its AI models in that direction. However, it's trying to establish long-lasting relationship with important actors in the industry, like movie makers and the Hollywood agencies, in order to keep improving the AI models in a way that it provides exactly what they need. So it's a collaboration between the customers and the company for Runway. Now the revenues. We have described so far who is the target of the different organization and how they can provide values to this organization. But how can these companies extract some of the values? Of course, any business needs to have enough revenues to be able to sustain its own costs in order to keep being successful in the future. So in terms of revenue streams, they can generally be divided into transaction revenues. A fee is charged for every single transaction that is completed. For example, in a supermarket, I sell a product, you buy the single product, single transaction, or there are recurring revenues, such as the subscription. I'm charging you for every month that you use my product. And we can see that the three organizations here are very similar in terms that they all rely upon some subscription model. However, because of AI, they are integrating it with some transactions fees as well. So for example, for Adobe, they have high average revenues per users, licenses for enterprises. However, now that it's using AI, and because of the costs of running AI models, in addition to train them, they also needed to create generative credits. So organizations need to buy credits for using AI, and the more the AI they want to use, the more credits they will need to buy. So more similar to a consumption fee. Canva, similarly, freemium funnel at the beginning. Customers need to get to know Canva, try to experiment with it. So that's why it's free at the beginning. The more you want, including the more sophisticated the tool or the more AI intensive the tool, the more you will need to pay as a consumer. For Runway, similar approach, subscription to some models. If you want a more advanced models, or if you want to be able to use more GPU, then Runway asks you to pay more. Essentially, start paying for the usage and the type of usage that you make of the platform. Now we look at more at the side of the cost. So we have described so far what's the proposition of the organization and how it plans to be able to produce value and also to capture value. In the second in the second group of blocks, we are going to look at how it's able to create that value within the organization. And the first block will be the key resources. What are the resources that each organization needs to have in place in order to be able to deliver the value that it is proposing to its customers? And generally, resources, we mean physical resources, intellectual resources like patents, human resources, capitals, engineers, especially for R&D and AI, particularly important, and the capital behind the organization, so financial resources. And here we see Adobe has being financially the dominant actor in the industry, clearly. It has also proprietary data and copyright safe training data. So Adobe for decades has been growing an Adobe stock, a stock of images and videos that the users of Adobe were creating and giving to Adobe in exchange of a small fee. Adobe is the proprietary of that stock of images and videos and is using it to create AI models and to improve its own AI models. This is why Adobe is able to guarantee to its professional users the copyright safe use of the AI models of Adobe. So very interesting and very important how these blocks come together for Adobe. For Canva, instead, we have the main resources are the vast template of library that the users can use, and the users' data Canvas can learn from users what they use, what they like more, and use that information to keep improving its models and its offering to the platform. For Runway, that we have that the key resources is the AI model itself. It's not much of the data. The data was actually trained on publicly available data, but with that data, I was able to develop very sophisticated and high quality AI models like Gen 2 and Gen 3. And this is the key resource for Runway still. It is important here to highlight one thing about this block, which is that the customers. So before the AI era, we had in this traditional software as a service kind of industry, the key resources were static. It was the code base, the servers required to run the cloud, or the user interface. Now with the AI era, especially with the AI native organizations, the users are the producers. So in these organizations, the products, the videos, the images produced by the consumers in these three different platforms are used in different ways by these three different companies in order to train their own models and provide even higher value to the consumers. So the consumers are at the same time the consumers of the product and the producers of the product, which creates some challenges in the management of these consumers, how to keep them engaged in the platform, how to keep the trust that they have on these organizations. Next block will be the activities. Which kind of activities do we need within the organization to transform these key resources into the outcome product? And here we see that the key activities for Adobe, especially as we think in the era of AI, is compliance with copyright regulations and making sure that the material is used in a private way and respecting all of the copyright of the consumers/producers as well. Of course, key activity, it was and it still is the enterprise integration. So the integration with the established organizations, especially the biggest ones, and the algorithmic governance of the entire Adobe Cloud Suite. For Canva, the key activity is still around the user interface and the user experience optimization. Users need to come to the Canva website and need to easily be able to fulfill their goals and to be to produce the design outcome that they wanted, that they had in their mind. So managing this user experience and interface and managing this creative ecosystem is the main activity for Canvas in order to remain competitive in this market. And finally, we have Runway. Runway is the one of the three that is the most tried to build a new technology, is the one most invested, is the one whose competition and competitive advantage most depends on its ability to provide a very high level AI model. So the main activity for Runway remains R&D. R&D in AI, and hence the collaboration with its own customers to understand how to improve those models to make sure that the product that is going to offer in the future are going to be valuable for their target audience. In terms of partnership, the block of partnership describes the relationships with other organizations that each of these three organizations are going to need to establish, for example, with the suppliers. And we can see that for Adobe and Canva, for the three organizations really, but especially for these two, a very important partnership in the era of AI is with the consumers themselves, the consumers that become producers. So I was mentioning before, users that are using each of these three companies' products are, while using the product, they are also creating new data and images and videos that the same companies can then use to train their own model in the future. So for Adobe, it's very important to maintain and manage this partnership with the stock contributors. For Canvas, it's very important to maintain and nourish this relationship with the Canva template creators. And for Runway, it's very important to keep developing this partnership with the professionals in the media industry, especially with the media giants, with the big organizations. I mentioned before, Runway started from smaller organizations, but the goal is to be a tool that complements the work of professionals in the filmmaking industry. And therefore, the goal for a Runway is to develop and improve this partnership with the big actors in the industry. And then we have finally we have the cost structure. All this set of activities and partnership and resources that an organization need to have together that describe the costs that the organizations needs to sustain in order to be able to provide the desired value to the consumers. And here is general distinctions of the type of costs that an organization might sustain: fixed costs that do not vary with the usage of consumers, the variable costs that instead vary with the usage of the consumer of the company's product. And the organization is trying to organize all these different costs across the different activities and resources to optimize the economies of scale or to optimize the economies of scope within the organization. Either way, what we see in terms of the cost structure for these three organizations, we see that they are all invested somehow in R&D. Adobe has been having a massive R&D cost structure for the organization because it has been the go-to tool for professionals for many decades because it has kept with the time. So it was always able to provide the state-of-the-art tool required by professionals. However, there's also major sales and marketing costs. It needs to keep promoting its own product in order to be able to maintain it as the standard tool for professionals in this industry. For Canva, excuse me, for Canva, the main cost structures derive from the maintenance of the cloud hosting platform. So that is a major cost on Canvas, but also, and interestingly, is the revenue shares with the creators. Canva is a younger company compared to Adobe, so it doesn't have decades of Adobe stock accumulation. It's building its stock of images and videos from its own consumers. And in order to promote or incentivize consumers sharing their productions, their images and their videos with Canva, then it has this revenue shares program where you voluntarily give your image or video to Canva for training the AI, and Canva is gonna share some of the revenues with you. For Runway, the main cost is the extreme compute power necessary to run and train these AI models. Runway is still a startup, so as you can imagine, it has huge losses at the time. It has very big investments behind. The idea is that or what the investors think of Runway is that Runway is building a technology that will produce a lot of revenues in the future. So they are betting on this, and therefore they are supporting the company, even though at the correct time it's on a loss from a revenues and cost perspective. So now that we have looked at these three companies, going through each of these three of these 9 blocks together, how can we summarize what we have seen? What are some of the points that are common across these 3 organizations? And certainly there are. So 3 organizations, they're all of the 3 using AI in order to compete in this market. Where they are, so for example, they are all and we see the use of AI in each of these 3 companies in terms of the changes in the cost structure and the revenue streams. As I mentioned, all organizations are subscription-based models, but they need to kind of account for the cost of using AI by consumers. So there is an integration of the fixed fixed price or subscription model, and integration with a usage fee for the use of AI. And in terms of the key resources, all of the 3 companies are now reliant upon not only the code base and the user interface, but more and more they are reliant upon the data that the consumers are able to provide to these organizations, which means that the data is becoming an important differentiating factor or an important challenge for each of these organizations. Particularly, because these organizations need to motivate their own consumers to not only use the product, but also give some resources, the data, to the product itself, to the AI model. It means that these organizations are now trying to govern this relationship with consumers in order to create trust and motivate them to keep donating their data. And they're doing it in 3 different ways, which I think are especially important. Adobe is using the consumer's data for training its own AI as anybody else, but it's also using AI in order to filter what the consumers are providing to Adobe. So it will be very problematic for the AI foundational model if the contributors of Adobe stock are using AI or providing images built using AI. So Adobe wants human-made images and films and other stocks in order to train its own AI models. So it's using another AI algorithm to filter the really high-quality images and stocks, so that it can keep training its own algorithms on very high-quality, professional quality material, and therefore is trying to remain competitive in the market in this way through the high quality of its own data. However, because it's using AI in order to filter the data offered by consumers, and because some of the consumers might be unhappy with the selection that this AI algorithm does, or that the Adobe algorithm, whether it's AI driven or not, does, then there is a risk for AI that there is a risk for Adobe that the consumers become unhappy. They offered what they thought was a very high quality image. Adobe is refusing it. That might create some unsatisfaction, some unhappiness, and therefore create some friction between Adobe and its own consumers. As I mentioned, that Adobe will need to take into account and manage carefully as it moves forward. Canva, similarly, Canva is using AI and is using the production of its own consumers in order to keep training its AI models. To do that, however, Canvas needs a very particular structure of these images. It's not sufficient to just send a template or just to send an image. For Canva to be able to use it to train its own models, then this image needs to be tagged and layered in a very specific way. So the consumers who want to become producers on the platforms will need to learn how this tagging is done. They need to learn how to layer their own products, and that, of course, requires can create some friction. Therefore, for Canvas, it's important to incentivize producers to provide the data in the way that Canva needs it and keeps providing high quantity and a high quality of data to keep running its own AI models. And finally, for Runways, the AI models of Runways require this high fidelity data from professional filmmakers. And therefore, the main challenge for Runway is to nourish the trust of these filmmakers. These filmmakers are creators. They have their own styles in creating the movie, in creating the image. They do not want to run the risk that AI learns their style and then the AI substitutes them and pushes them out of the industry. So Runway needs to manage this very complex trade-off that we see across many other companies in the industries. The OpenAI, Gemini, they all Anthropic, they all are facing challenges in how to recognize the work of creators and artists that they might have been using for the creation of their own AI models. The same problems will be with Runway, because Runway is creating the AI models based on this high quality creative work. And in order for these creators to be willing to keep sharing their own work, especially the high quality work, Runway needs to manage this trust relationship to make sure that the data keeps flowing in. So to summarize, what I think we are seeing, or we can see from this presentation, is that AI is making the code a commodity. It is indeed easier for professionals and non-professionals to create digital design products. However, as I'm highlighting as well in this last slide, the human behavior is becoming more and more a critical component for the three organizations and more broadly for organizations that are platform-like or service, product as a service, kind of software as a service, kind of organizations. The companies that are able to succeed in this AI era are most likely not just companies that have the best AI models, are also the companies that are able to maintain this relationship with their producers and are able to keep extracting high quality data from their own consumers. I think this will be a central point of differentiation for companies in the AI era. Thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to discussing more some of the points that I raised in these presentations with you and answer any of the questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katia, for this great presentation. We've had quite a lot of interest in the chat. We've got some questions asked. And if you have additional questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will follow up on this presentation with about any questions that we couldn't answer in the time allocated to us. So we'll do a follow up to this. Let me start with a question from Grace Pi Leonard, who said, do you see the recent updates to Adobe's AI capabilities in tools like Firefly and Adobe Express as a threat to Canva and Runway? Or do you think they occupy different market niches with different buyers and different organizations?
So very interesting. I wouldn't define it as a threat per se, but I do see it as one tool that makes the organizations more similar. So I think they can all coexist in the future world. However, some updates like the Adobe Firefly is moving more toward the market of Canvas and of Canva in particular, and a bit of Runway as well. So yes, the three organizations, as they converge toward the use, or as they use AI, they are a bit converging in terms of the markets that they have. So there is going to be, I expect, greater overlap than it was previously, where the market was nicely segmented into non-professional and professionals, for example. That's going to be more blurred than that.
Okay. Then we get some questions on tensions. So Ava Nadege-Kone asks, with Canva managing the creator ecosystems alongside the optimization of the user interface and user experience, is there a tension between them empowering creators and template providers and pushing AI-generated content that might ultimately replace them? So how do these companies sustain relationships with contributors that are at the same time threatened by the product that they put out?
Yeah, this is an excellent point, and a major point that many organizations are still trying to figure out. I think that's a major trade-off for Canva, but also for Runway and any other organization that is building the AI model. And how to do that exactly, it will probably depends on each organization. What I've seen as a general trend is a share of revenues of some sort with the producers, and a clear specification on if and when your products, your images, or the movies you created are going to be used. So the consumers do not want to, by default, have all the images that they upload on any platforms to be used for the training. They strongly dislike that. However, a subset of consumers is eager and willing to share their own images and videos for the purpose of the creation and the training of the AI models. So the platform needs to identify those who are willing to produce for their own platforms, and identify what are the specific drivers that incentivize their sharing behavior. And that will change from platform to platform, from industry to industry.
Awesome. Mohammed Juldi Barry asked, with AI, it seems like variable cost, in particular inferencing costs, can explode really fast at scale. How should companies think about that when they think about their pricing model?
Yes, indeed, very important, and it's becoming increasingly heavy on the cost side of the organizations. As we have seen from the three companies, they are all approaching a mix of fixed subscription model, and then an additional payment by consumers if they want to use more AI, if they want to use more, depending on the usage of the computing power that each consumer does, then the consumer will have to pay more. This seems to be sustainable, or even in the long run. It of course depends on the willingness to pay of the consumer. So eventually, whether all three organizations, for example, that we analyzed today, whether all of three will be able to keep this model will depend on whether the products that they are able to provide are going to be sufficiently different. So we might see, if the AI models start to resemble each other in the terms of the quality or the types of products that they can produce, then we might see consumers flowing toward one or a small subset of companies, which forces the others to seriously revise their pricing structure. And I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but it's something to look out for.
All right. So Pamphile Gansu asked the question, and that relates to the structure of your presentation because you used the business model canvas building blocks to outline the differences between the three companies. So when a traditional company adopts AI, he asked, which of the 9 business model blocks tends to change first? And which one is the hardest to transform or to change?
Yeah. So they, in a business model, they tend to say the blocks in a business model need to move together. So there isn't really one that moves first and the others kind of follow. However, I will say that the one that sets the direction, so in a certain sense is the first one, is the value proposition. With the AI, the type of value that an organization can provide to consumers is changing. And we have seen how it changed for the 3 different companies. That one is not moving first in terms of times, is moving first in terms of setting the clear direction. And then the other blocks are built in order to be able to provide that value, to be able to provide the new value that the organization thinks can give to its own target consumers through AI.
Okay. And then let me close out before I hand it back to Dina for some closing words on this series. We get quite a number of questions and comments about the I would say ownership, property rights, ethics of these models, right? So does each company require users to give companies the right to further use the content? There was a question by William Rubin, right? Who owns user-generated content? And then let me tie in a question from Pamphile Gansu. At what point does the proprietary data or the user-contributed data become a stronger competitive advantage than the AI model in itself? So who owns the data, and when is the data more valuable than your algorithm?
Yeah, so I will say that we can already see that the companies are differentiating each other in terms of the data that they use for training their model. Adobe is the actor that, as I mentioned, has for a long time been accumulating images, high-quality images and high-quality films from the professional customers that is served over the decades. So it has this immense Adobe stock, and it's using that and that only to train its own AI, and therefore is able to tell the consumers, well, this is copyright safe. You as a professional can keep building professional work based on my AI models because they are safe. You will not risk any copyright infringement. The other 2 companies, because they are newer, they don't have this accumulated stock of data yet. They need to create it. And my understanding is that what's the agreement with the consumers changes over time. I found news suggesting that Runway was by default using old consumers' data in order to keep training its models. Eventually, there was a backlash. So I went on the website yesterday, and it was clearly stated that these data from consumers will not be used automatically. That consumers now need to decide to volunteer their own data for the company. So it is changing. It's more pressing for the younger organization to use all the data available at the beginning, and then as the model develops, then they can start more selecting high quality data. Whether I'm unable to say whether the data or the AI model is gonna drive the differentiation. Right now, it seems like because of the level at which we are in terms of the technological cycles, data seems to be the most important one because they are able to build the AI, the high quality, high model. I am honestly unable to say whether there is going to be a point in which AI models cannot be any better, and therefore one is going to actually determine the competition at that point. It's a very interesting thing to look at as we move forward in this AI era. Welcome, everybody. There were a few questions that I didn't have the time to go through earlier today during our conversation, so I'd like to address them now. The first question that I have is, if proprietary training data is now the ultimate key resource, how does a company that doesn't have massive data assets even compete? So this is a problem faced by many startups in the industry that we analyzed, but it's true across industries. These AI native startups do not have the proprietary data to use to train their own models. And this was the case for Runway in our three examples. The way Runway approached it is that it started by using publicly accessible data in order to train its own first AI models. And as the company is now growing, the company is creating ad hoc partnership with its own customers, the studio networks, the studio agencies, filmmakers. And it's therefore, through these collaborations with other big enterprises, is able to access the proprietary data of those enterprises, the customers that become also producers. And it's now using that data for improving its own models and creating more advanced AI models. Second question, beyond generating training data, what other roles do customers play as a resource in AI business models? I will say that the primary role as a resource of customers is in the AI area is data production. However, we know that customers are an important resource also for other types of data, behavioral data, for example, that Canva uses extensively. That isn't new to the AI area, it's not unique to the AI business models, but they are still very important data for companies in order to learn from the behavior of users and be able to provide a higher or more valuable product. So the product, not only in terms of the objective quality of the image in our example, but also a product that is better able to meet the taste of the consumers, which we learn from the behavioral data rather than the images or videos provided by consumers. Next question, as AI advances, will there be a point where models no longer need ongoing customer data to anticipate consumer needs? Or is it continuous training unavoidable because customer needs keep changing? And I think I want to combine this question, this very good question, with the next question as well. If AI increasingly commoditize technical capability, will future competitive advantage depend more on trust, behavioral data, and ecosystem integration than on the AI business models, on the AI models themselves? So I think these two questions are related because they ask about the progress, the technological progress of the technology itself, and in its future, the evolution, how the competition will look. So not how the competition looks now, but rather how the competition will look in the future, given the changes that we can expect on the technology. Now, the challenge is to predict the changes that this technology will have in the future. I'm unprepared to answer that specific question. I think nobody really knows how this technology is going to evolve. However, based on previous technologies and on previous studies, all other technologies have reached a point where they peaked. So they reached the maximum quality that they could reach, and then the competition across the different companies started being not much on the technology per se, but rather the use of the technologies that the companies were able to make, and the differentiating factors, which therefore might look more differentiation in terms of the ability of users to trust the different companies, the behavioral data that the different companies are able to collect and use. So these are other types of business variables that are not specific to the AI technology itself. Though this relies on the assumptions that we will reach a peak in the technology, which we cannot know. For sure, this is something to keep looking at, and as the different AI business models evolve, look at whether they are converging toward a similar product, and as they converge, maybe look at whether companies start differentiating themselves in terms of these other dimensions, so the ecosystem integration, the behavioral data of the users, and the use they're able to make of it, for example. Next questions. As organizations embed AI into their core activities, how can they create business value while managing operational, ethical, and governance risk? So this answer really much depends on the specific organization. We have seen 3 examples, and the 3 of them, based on each of them, the answer would be different. I think a great example, a very unique example, is Adobe, because Adobe has already the proprietary data that it has been using for training the model. So it's making of that ability to use proprietary data, that ability to guarantee copyright safety. It's using that to make to build its competitive advantage in the industry. The other 2 companies, they are younger, and therefore they don't have the proprietary data. They're not able to differentiate themselves based on the copyright protection, so more on the ethical dimensions or governance risk of the data. And what they do instead, they try to compete on the AI model, so the and I'm thinking at Runway, the sophistication of the output that they are able to provide in that very specific and narrow niche in the market, but it's about the specification, the complexity and the quality of the output. And for Canva, can continue to create value by providing even higher quality products to consumers who are not professionals. So each of the 3 companies would answer the question differently. And what it's important to notice is that each of them answers the questions with its own strengths. So depending on where their strengths and the key resources are, they will try to provide value differently as it pertains to this 3 different dimensions that you highlight. The next question, you listed compliance and algorithmic governance as key activities for Adobe. How is Adobe actually enforcing that internally? Or is it primarily a market positioning move at this point? So in what I've reviewed from these 3 companies, Adobe is effectively using this algorithm governance. So it's not just a marketing move, it is using it. And it's using it with the commitment of using only proprietary data, and therefore the ability to guarantee to its customers that that the models have been trained on proprietary data, and therefore shielding professionals using Adobe from possible copyright issues. And it's enforcing it by keep building a stock of images and videos that keep complying with both the copyright regulations and the copyright rules that Adobe has set for its own Adobe stock. And it's also building this stock by maintaining a very high quality. So as I mentioned during my presentation, Adobe is using AI, or in any case is filtering what the consumers provide as images and videos to its Adobe stock. It's filtering it for very high quality, which might be defined as human created rather than AI created. I'm not sure about the specific rules, but so it might be, favoring human created images and videos, very high quality images and videos. So it's curating its Adobe stock, and that's how it is guaranteeing or working to maintain compliance of its products. The next question we have is, how can companies tighten AI governance and automation without losing the trust and participation of the creators and partners who make their platforms valuable? This is a very important question, and this is a huge question. So there are courses written on how platforms who have been managing this question for a very long time, how they manage the trust and enrich the trust of the consumers, motivate them to keep participating and keep volunteering their activities, their data. It's a set of governance tools. It might be monetary incentives. Canvas, we have seen that it's sharing the revenues from the templates built by the consumers. It's sharing those revenues with the consumers themselves, the producers. Some others platforms do use more motivational, inspirational incentives. Maybe they are collaborating toward a very specific ethical goal that will benefit society and that motivates the users to contribute their data. So this answer really depends on the specifics of the company, the industry, the value proposition of the company, and it has a broad spectrum of governance tools that can be applied in order to incentivize users to keep participating. But it's a very complex trade-off, that changes over time. So how to make sure to maintain the users engaged in the platform is a very important managerial question and a challenge that is common to all of these companies, and that it really much depends on the specific and whose answer really depends on the specifics of the users and the specific of the context. The last question that we have is Adobe, Canva, and Runway have completely different cost structures. So how do you actually compare their AI business models on the same frameworks? This is a good question because it allows me to clarify that the business model Canva that we use today throughout this presentation, it's a tool that allows us to abstract a bit away from the context, so find more general trends within each company, and then just this abstraction allows us to notice the differences between these three companies. So it's true that the cost structures of the three companies are different, and we saw that depends on the fact that the customers that they are targeting are different. The types of value proposition that they have is different. And everything else in the 9 building blocks is different because of those two drivers, including the cost structure. So we shouldn't look at this tool for understanding the nuances of the differences between the companies and compare which cost structure is better. This is not the exercise that we were doing today, and I wouldn't recommend you using the business model Canvas for achieving that goal. However, the business model Canva is very helpful to see how the different the ties within each companies are interconnected with each other, and how the decision of which customers to serve and which value proposition to provide to those customers is affecting the other blocks as well, including the cost structure. So hopefully you were able to see how within each company these 9 blocks are interconnected with each other, how they need to work coherently and together toward providing the value proposition that we identified, towards serving the customer segment that we identified. And by applying this model to the different companies, we can start seeing some differences and start identifying some possible trends that then we can look for in other companies, as well as we are trying to understand how the different industries, so not just the digital design industry that we discussed today, but any other industry or any other company is changing as a consequence of AI integration and the AI evolution that we are experiencing together. I hope this was overall an interesting discussion. I surely enjoyed our time together and your question. Thank you very much again for your time.
Thank you so much, professors. Katia, this presentation was absolutely amazing. And I have to tell you, I mean, these are things that even in higher education we deal with on a regular basis as an Office of Graduate Admissions. And it's the insight was just wonderful, and I learned so much from you. But in this world of AI, we really cannot forget about the human beings behind the work that is being done. And Dr. Michael Zermulin, you were the brain behind this faculty lecture series. You helped put it all together. You rallied the faculty members, and you actually gave us the first presentation. So it is with sincere thanks to you for making this happen. Much appreciated. And all of our faculty members, Violet Chen, we had Zachary Feinstein, we had Jordan Sucho, we had Alexei Altonen, and today we had Professor Katia Meggiorin. Thank you so much. You took your time to put these presentations together, these lectures. You have shown people out there what Stevens is made out of, and we are so incredibly proud of our faculty members. Professors in a university are like doctors in a hospital. If you don't have good doctors in a hospital, you don't have a good hospital. And frankly, it is our faculty members that make Stevens Institute of Technology what it is today. So it is with much appreciation to you. And of course, the team that put everything together. First of all, Amanda Mendes, who has her camera here, Associate Director of Graduate Admissions, and my right and left hand woman, who I often go to and say, guess what? We're doing this in a couple of weeks. And she makes everything happen, from system to the team that arrange everything. So thank you for all the work you have done in this. Christopher John, who has been sort of the brain behind the LinkedIn badges that you will all be receiving if you've attended 4 or more of these lectures. He has put so much effort into the communications that have gone out to you. He has put so much effort into the design of the faculty lecture series. So thank you, Chris. Paula Sum, for making sure that in terms of marketing the event, she has done so much work for this as well. And all of the team in graduate admissions who was here answering questions in the chats for you, making sure that they were on the sidebar in case you needed any help. Thank you all. And of course, you, all of you who attended these lectures. And I cannot tell you how emotional I am as to how these faculty lectures have just taken off and have taken sort of a world of their own. We did not think that the reach of this was going to be so strong. And it truly was. We had over 1,000 registrants for these faculty lecture series. And every single lecture is being heard not just by those in the Zoom rooms, which many of you are coming to us from industry. I have met Stevens lifers like Tom and Sean. Thank you for continuing to be here every single lecture. Our alumni, our current students, prospective students that are interested in graduate programs. You are the reason why we do everything that we do. Every single university is here to teach and to, whether it is upskilling what you already know, or if it's venturing into a different area from what you're currently doing. It's wonderful. And it is a world that is still very decent world. So thank you all for being here. As I mention every single event, Stevens Institute of Technology offers more than 58 master's degree programs, more than 20 PhD programs. Of course, as a thank you for being here today, if you're interested in taking one course as a non-matric student, or whether you're interested in upskilling or coming and joining our community as a graduate student, or whether at the master's level, at the graduate certificate level, or at the PhD level, welcome to you all. And as a thank you, we will waive your application fee for your application. And of course, we do understand that there are so many more conversations to be had. And as Dr. Michael Zermulin promised me today, he said, I think we need to do more. And so please keep a lookout for more of these faculty lectures to come, because we are so incredibly proud of the information and the academia that our professors relay onto all of us. So keep a lookout for more to come. Definitely, we will be doing more for you. And, you know, I am completely emotional that this lecture series is coming to an end. But I thank you for making it what it truly was, an absolutely amazing event. So thank you all. And we will be seeing you very soon. Michael, would you like to close out the lecture?
So yeah, as we foreshadowed, we might do this again in the fall. And if you are interested in a particular topic, we welcome your input. So reach out to us, and the communication that you receive from the team about the lectures, about the recordings that are posted, has our contact information on it. So send us a message if there's a particular topic you're interested in. And if we have the faculty expertise to address it, we will schedule it for the next of these series. So from my perspective as well, thank you so much for attending. We had 371 attendees today in this lecture. So, Katia, you're famous now.
She was already famous, frankly.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. And thank you to the School of Business for certainly doing this along our side. Of course. Thank you all. Take care.